What is going on, FA Nation? Happy Thursday, and welcome to another edition of the Fantasy Alarm NBA DFS live stream. I am James Grande, joined by Sean Mitchell, the man of the hour on the playbook today. Sean, I know you, like myself, like John, like pretty much everyone else in DFS community is reshuffling everything that they once thought was good because we just got word, breaking news, that Kyrie Irving was not going to play tonight. So with that, Sean, with that intro, how you doing, brother? And are you ready for the craziness that's about to ensue on this 5-game slate?
Oh, it's going to be a show, that's for sure. Didn't expect the Kyrie news. Obviously, personal reasons. Not really sure what's going on there, but it is what it is. So yeah, you're looking at getting just maybe even a whole different starting five here for the Nets.
Right.
After we just saw Steve Nash totally shake up the starting five in the last game. Not to mention that, but that spread has already jumped 2 points in the favor of Philadelphia. And the total has gone down almost 3 points. So it's down to 222.5 right now, right around that 223 range. And you're talking about two of the fastest teams in the league here. This was easily one of the fastest, pace-wise games on the board, with Philadelphia sitting at 6, Brooklyn sitting at 5th in terms of pace. So that totally just flipped that game all kinds of upside down. But there obviously will be some value there.
And speaking of that game, we have more news, Sean.
Oh,
And that is one Seth Curry officially inactive tonight, will not play. And I think I think that's a great transition into the playbook. Actually, we'll just quickly backtrack and leave you guys in a cliffhanger there because there is some interesting value opening up there. Let's just go back to a couple injury notes that we are awaiting, and let's just face it, it's the Lakers. We're waiting on LeBron, we're waiting on Davis, we're waiting on KCP, all currently questionable. LeBron's been questionable every night, and every night he plays. We have seen Davis sit once this year.
Yeah.
Usually he is more likely to sit considering he is built out of glass and LeBron is built out of iron. And then KCP has missed the last couple games. So just obviously something to monitor. And Colin Sexton and Damian Dotson are two names to keep in mind, are also questionable. And we could be seeing Point Drummond. But I digress. Sean, let's jump into the playbook where at the point guard position, we have Luka Doncic up top, sitting on a perch all by himself. And I ask you, sir, we're all aboard the Luka bandwagon once again tonight, right?
I think it's hard not to, obviously, right, because now you're looking at Luka. I mean, potentially he's could be one of the highest owned players on the slate other than Karis LeVert.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, Luka, we saw what he can do again. He had 40.2% usage rate in that last game, had a massive triple-double. It was against the Rockets. He's not exactly in the best matchup, going into Denver tonight, but at the same time, they kind of, Carlisle kind of shook up that rotation a little bit too, that starting five. They had Willie, Cauley, Stein in there instead of Dwight Powell. I think that made a huge, huge difference for that starting five, made it look better, gave, Luka some actual down-low pick and roll type options where he could actually do a lot more. So, yeah, I can't help but just love Luka at 10-5 on DraftKings. I'm still there. Yeah.
The next tier down becomes interesting because I think Ben Simmons goes completely overlooked, just considering I don't know who in the right mind thinks that this game stays competitive. Maybe, I mean, we saw Karis LeVert do crazy things in the bubble this year or this past postseason. So maybe he can keep this competitive all by himself. But do you have any interest in Simmons? I mean, for someone who plays tournaments a lot, this could be intriguing to you because if Philly does keep this or Brooklyn, rather, sorry, keeps this close, nobody's going to play Simmons.
And nobody's going to play Embiid either. And,
right,
if he does play, which, we're still awaiting that, it is a back-to-back. He did play 36, 37 minutes last night. So that is something we are obviously going to wait to see. I know we got the extra 30 minutes on lock time tonight, so we could, potentially not see that news come in until right before that game even tips. But, Ben Simmons, both with Joel Embiid, you could see these guys with sub 10% ownership on a 5-game slate where they're in massively good spots here. Especially, Joel Embiid, we faded the Nets front court, that center spot. We've faded that for, forever. But yeah, Ben Simmons, he's still got the triple-double potential. He's likely going to be, Seth Curry was just rolled out, as you mentioned. So, you're looking at him even getting more usage and having that ball in his hands at all time now. So, yeah, I think it's really interesting. And, yeah, I think you could potentially get both of those guys at no ownership, and they could completely smash if the Nets do hang around.
Right. And you mentioned Seth Curry being out, and we mentioned it. We'll circle back to that news now because that has to bring Shake Milton firmly into our player pool more than he already was, because he has been very good lately in a limited role. 24 more fantasy points over on DraftKings in 4 straight games. We've seen a 30-plus point ceiling. If Milton were to slide into the starting lineup tonight, what is your interest level, or do you still prefer him to come off the bench?
Well, I think Shake is one of those types of players that can probably produce in any kind of fashion.
Right, we saw him starting last year too, and he was good as a starter.
He started a lot last year.
Right.
He started a lot, so it's not like it's a new thing for him.
Right.
And plus, he's just really cheap. And plus, he's not looking like he's going to have any ownership as well, which we kind of expected. But even in the event that this game gets a little bit out of hand, Shake could still see all of that garbage run. So yeah, he's most definitely in play for me tonight.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because you have him labeled as a cash play. I think this Seth Curry news kind of pivots him to any format you'd like, because if we're going to get him at that ownership too, right? I mean, that's prime time tournament option.
Right, and that was a big reason of labeling him as a cash play, is because at the price, for the minutes that he was getting, the time he was getting on that second unit, he wasn't exactly able to produce those kind of upside numbers you would need to win a tournament. So that's exactly kind of why I labeled him as cash at that price. But now, yeah, he's definitely playing both.
Hey, John, note that down, and let's get an edit there. Thank you, sir. I got a couple options here. I just want to get your take on a couple of value point guards, because a couple guys that you don't have in the playbook, but I just want to throw their names out. Someone that you've been very fond of in recent weeks, Patty Mills, coming off his biggest game of the year. And then I know you stay true to your Desmond Bane shares, but D'Anthony Melton only 3,300. Do you have any interest in either of those two?
Patty Mills probably more than Bane tonight. I just don't really exactly like Bane. He's just not been producing, with the minutes he's been getting. And Melton, he could see that potential bump. Right. He only played 15 minutes last game. I know, he was playing around the 25 to 30 minute mark last year. Could see those minutes go up. So I would much more be prone to playing Patty Mills. And don't get me wrong, love Patty Mills. Derek White's still out. He's going to see the good run on the second unit. He did happen to have just an amazing shooting night. He scored 27 actual, but if you look, he only had 1 rebound, 1 assist, no steals, no blocks. So basically, he's just a high-volume shooter that needs the volume, and he needs to hit a shot. So for that reason, yeah, he's a tournament dart, and you see what he can do, but I don't feel there's a need to go there tonight.
Especially with the Shake Milton news, honestly. So let's move over to the shooting guard position, where pretty balanced in terms of not a lot of high-priced options, but a very strong mid-tier led by T.J. McCollum, who is playing out of his mind this year, so consistent. We have DeMar DeRozan, who you mentioned, no Derek White. He has also been playing very well. And then the two guys I think come in with the highest ownership, or let's actually throw 3 guys into the ring. Russell, who is coming off an insane game. Karis LeVert, who is going to be in every single lineup, whether it's cash or tournament. I think it's just a must. And then Malik Beasley, who has also been playing extremely well. I know he's not on a revenge tour. At least we don't think so. Maybe he has like a revenge against someone he played in high school. He lives in Portland, and I don't know. You're the Malik Beasley revenge guy. Why don't you break down the shooting guard position for us here, Sean?
Yeah, for one thing, I really, really just like that Minnesota-Portland game. It's got the highest total on the board at 233. You got 2 of the faster teams, with Portland coming in at 15th fastest. And you have the Timberwolves coming in, I think, is the 9th fastest team in the league right now. So both these teams run with good pace. We know they're not exactly big on defense, right? high total. Usually you can see a lot of up and down. McCollum, 21 or more shots attempts in his last 4 of 6 or so, taking 17 or more shot attempts in every single game this year. He's easily going to have that kind of potential production. As I kind of wrote in the playbook. Whenever you're taking that many shots a game, it's a lot easier to land on 40 or 50 fantasy points. Plus, he comes into this game tonight, which with with Minnesota, who's allowing the third most fantasy points to that shooting guard spot. So it's a great matchup. The DVP's there. He's just been absolutely playing insane, like you said, and his price is actually fair on DraftKings at 8.5. Going down the list, D'Angelo Russell on that flip side, same thing. The Blazers allowing the second most fantasy points to opposing shooting guards. So you kind of got a DVP mix there in a game that has a very high total, and I think you can just stack up the guards in this game, really. I mean, I think you can play all of them. And Malik Beasley is included for that same reason. D'Angelo Russell runs more of the point guard spot, but we know that Portland is not exactly that great against defending the point guard either. So, yeah, I mean, if you want to get different from LeVert, which don't get me wrong, even as a tournament player, I'm going to have some LeVert tonight. Guys having a 40% usage rate. And, we saw that he has the ability to score 30 actual in no time because he scored 24 actual in
21 minutes. Yeah, 21 minutes, yeah.
So he doesn't need a lot of time. Philadelphia has actually been crushed by wings this year. We just saw Brad Beal drop 60 actual on him yesterday. Caris LeVert is absolutely going to be in some lineups.
What's your take? And I messaged you and John a little while ago. Give me your thoughts on Anthony Edwards as a tournament play tonight.
I don't mind it. I mean, he's actually, I tweeted out here a couple of days ago, the highest usage rates off the bench so far this year, playing at least 18 minutes or more, and I think he was fourth on that list. He's a good rookie. I mean, the spot's good. Obviously, like I said, any ways to get more exposure to that game, I'm totally fine with it.
Let's shift our focus to this value tier because I think the Brooklyn guys are where we're going to make our money up because we're already paying for Luka. We're probably going to be paying for Jokic or Embiid in a tournament. Jokic in whatever format you want, but we have Bruce Brown at 3,500. We have TLC at 3,900. Right. Do you have a lean either way? Do you want to play both?
I want him starting. I mean, I would really like to see who's going to start in that matchup. Because then I think in the event that this game does get out of hand, you can maybe look to play the backup because you might think they play more garbage run.
Right.
I think that's really going to be really crucial to see who's starting. Like I said, Philly has been getting crushed by wings, so both of those guys could be in play. So to me, I think it just matters who's going to start.
Any Landry Shamet love out there?
Don't think so.
Okay, let's move to small forward where LeBron will obviously top the small forward list if he plays. That's a no-brainer. If him or Davis, if let's play hypothetically here. Anthony Davis sits. Where do you rank LeBron in terms of priorities tonight?
I think he's going to be top 3 play. He's top 48 fantasy points in his last 5 straight games. He's averaged right around 52 fantasy points against the same Spurs team in 2 games so far this year. If he's going to play over 30 minutes, which we've seen, he's been playing over 30 minutes a game while he actually plays, or when he plays, I should say, and he hadn't sat. So if Davis is ruled out and LBJ is the only one there, you could probably bank on a 33 to 35% usage rate, literally a triple double. He would be a top 3 play.
Luka or LeBron?
Luka.
LeBron or Joel Embiid?
If I knew for a fact that LeBron was going to play, it would probably be him.
LeBron or Jokic?
I'm going Jokic.
Same. Let's move down the small forward list where another Philly guy checks in, Tobias Harris. He has been extremely consistent this year. Big usage rate. A big usage rate. Checking in, I think, second on their team, way ahead of Simmons. But I think the next couple guys are interesting because Keldon Johnson continues to play play well. The price isn't great, but he's performing enough to warrant it. And then what do we do with Will Barton? Because he obviously got the price bump. Was at 6K on FanDuel, just under 6K on DK, and he wasn't in play because Michael Porter Jr. was going to play yesterday. Then he was downgraded to questionable, and then he's just flat out ruled out earlier in the day. So is Will Barton back on our radar? Tournaments, cash games, like how much exposure do we want to Will Barton and where?
I love Will Barton. I love him tonight. I love the spot. I don't mind fading Dallas, especially when it's in Denver. I think this is a great spot. Will Barton just played 35 minutes. I mean, right. He played 21 minutes the game in Minnesota, and then the rubber match here in Denver, he played 35 minutes, put up 37 fantasy points, 20 points, 7 boards, 3 dimes, and 2 steals. I mean, that's the kind of production you can look for in Will Barton, and that's exactly what we talked about whenever we were talking about him playing in Minnesota, and he only got 21 minutes. So, yeah, Barton is absolutely in play for me here again, especially with MPJ out. That's easily going to solidify him that starting role, and I think this game stays close. So, what's the spread on that game? It's 3. It's a 3-point spread. So, yeah, Will Barton, I know the price went up a little bit, but with MPJ being out, that solidified him as one of my favorite plays. He's not a top play, but he's one of my favorite plays on the slate.
A couple more guys in this mid-ish value tier is Cedi Osman, who honestly, who knows if he's going to be starting at point guard tonight, because we do not have any idea what Cleveland is going to do if Colin Sexton and Damian Dotson don't play. And then we have Rudy Gay, who I think the Spurs could be intriguing here.
Nobody's going to play him.
Yeah, and is Rudy Gay, I mean, specifically a tournament play for you? Do you think you could use him in cash? Like, what's your take on Rudy Gay's exposure here?
I'd probably stick to tournaments only. We did see him flash the upside. He did put up 43 fantasy points against Pelicans, I think, the second game of the year. He's been kind of living around that 24 to 28 fantasy point range here in the last 4 or 5 games, playing 23 to 28 minutes. I think the minutes are there. I think we can bank on him probably seeing between 23 to 28 minutes. If the production is there, obviously in the event that one of those guys sits between AD and LBJ, that's obviously going to help a little bit on the defensive side there. So Rudy was already in play, but if one of those guys sits, I think he might bump up a little bit where you can maybe look at him for cash. I mean, like I said, the minutes are there. We know he's going to get that second unit run. And like I said, he's been pretty decent. He's flashed a little upside, and then like I said, last 4 or 5 games, he's put up at least 20 or more fantasy points. So
over at the power forward position, obviously Anthony Davis tops the list. What about Davis in terms of priority when we're just, let's assume he's playing, and let's assume LeBron's playing, right? Where does Davis fall for you in terms of priority? Because we know Luka doesn't have anyone with him. We know Jokic has Jamal Murray, who, is good and he's bad. He's good, he's bad. We have an inconsistent Jamal Murray, and it doesn't matter. Jokic has been great when Murray's been great. Davis is going to have LeBron most likely. So where does he fall in terms of priority if him, LeBron, if they're both suiting up for this game?
I mean, on FanDuel, I just think he's going to be in play, whether you're on it or not. As far as on DraftKings, I mean, it's still kind of the same essence here with the forward spot. I mean, the small forward spot is pretty plentiful, but the power forward spot, it is a total wasteland tonight. It is awful. Once you get past Anthony Davis, you're looking at a lot of tournament plays, I feel like. So I would like to prioritize AD over LBJ, and that would hopefully be the best case scenario. And while I'm on that fact, it could potentially be baked into the spread because the Lakers opened at -9 in this game. Now they're sitting at -6. So does that maybe tell us that one of these guys is going to sit? So that's really interesting. If you look at it in terms of what's going on the spread, the game total still sitting at 223. It has a good game total. So I think that game's sneaky, especially if one of those guys sits. I think you got a little bit more options. But as far as prioritizing, I would probably rather have AD than LBJ.
Yeah, it feels like I mean, Davis, the way he's so impactful in blocks and steals on a nightly basis just really separates him from the pack. And that's why he is such a good play on FanDuel, where LeBron doesn't get the triple-double bonus on FanDuel,
Right.
whereas Davis goes 3 steals, 2 blocks, and suddenly that's 15 extra points that LeBron likely won't have. So
Right.
I do agree there. I guess let's just, again, we can unfold it because we do have time as we're flying through this live stream. If there are Lakers that sit, let's just play the hypothetical. LeBron sits, Davis sits. Then we have a situation, because we're at the power forward position, where Kyle Kuzma kind of feels like a must. We have Montrezl Harrell, who feels like a must. We've seen Montrezl Harrell in extended run in the past. He's not getting that run now with the Lakers, but we've seen extended run. Montrezl Harrell is a monster. We know Dennis Schroeder. Like, how would...
Yeah, Schroeder would probably... Sorry.
No, it's fine. But, like, how would you prioritize the Lakers given both those guys sit?
Well, obviously, yeah, Schroeder would easily come into play, especially at his price. He's just dirt cheap now because he hasn't really had a good game here, in a few games. Other than that, Kuzma would definitely come in. He's been having a pretty good usage rate, been playing really well, even with one or both playing. I think he started last game with KCP out, right? So, he would probably definitely be in terms of playing. Talon Horton-Tucker, I know he's played 22 and 23 minutes. Grande was big time on him the last game, weren't you? I mean, and he played the minutes. It wasn't like he didn't play the minutes, so it wasn't like he just totally bombed or anything.
Right.
But if both of those guys sit, I mean, he's going to be in play. Montrezl Harrell, as you mentioned, would obviously definitely be in play too. Another guy that you may be able to look at, I'm not 100% sure. I don't know if Keith has even been in the rotation. But, it's literally going to be probably Dennis Schroeder, THT, Kyle Kuzma, Montrezl Harrell. Those are going to be your main looks.
Yeah, and I think they all garner a lot of ownership if that ends up being the case. Markieff Morris, 14 minutes a game. So he is playing, not where you want it, but obviously if LeBron Davis doesn't suit up, I mean, you have to assume he sees 20 minutes.
Well, that's what I was doing while I keep looking over to my right here. I was actually looking at the usage without AD and LBJ on the floor. Interesting to note that in 32 minutes with them off the floor, THT, 27.2% usage rate, 1.49 fantasy point per minute.
Yep.
Montrezl Harrell, 24.8 minute sample. He has a 22.6% usage with a 1.20 fantasy point per minute. But the top guy is Dennis Schroeder, 28.9% usage with a 1.32 fantasy point per minute. So a couple numbers there to throw some context.
Yeah, I think if we're talking priority, I think you're right. I think Schroeder is the top priority in that grouping. I think Harrell has more upside than Kuzma. I think Kuzma probably presents a safer floor in cash, especially on FanDuel, where you get him as a power forward. And we just talked about it. Power forward is a wasteland. So I think that's a good transition back to the rest of the power forward position, because I want to get your take on a couple things, because Brandon Clark, Robert Covington, I think, to me, profile more as tournament plays. Right. And that means, at least on FanDuel, we're looking for PF2, right? John and I both mentioned in our DMs that we are constantly, is what you hear all day. Juancho Hernan-Gomez, who has started the last 2 games, and obviously, if you want to call it point chasing, fine. But he has started the last 2 games. He is still only 4,400. You have to assume he is going to be the chalk, at least in cash games, as that PF2 on FanDuel.
Yeah, look, he's going to get Rocco. Defense, not the greatest. Rocco's pretty dang good defender.
Very good. He's very good.
Yeah, I mean, I know, I mentioned it being point chasing, and that's kind of what I feel like it is. Like, nobody was on Juancho. I mean, in that game against Denver where he went back to Denver and just absolutely went nuclear. But you didn't see anything about that, or you didn't see any kind of production like that while they were playing in Minnesota, right? I mean, it definitely, I think, had some more ulterior motive being in Denver, as we know. So yeah, I don't believe that. I don't believe you have to go there.
Okay, and I'm fine with that. I think for the people that are playing cash games, I think that you are doing yourself a disservice not playing Juancho, at least on FanDuel, where he's going to be 50 to 60% owned. And
And I'll say this: I think you're probably doing yourself a disservice if you're playing cash, not anyways.
that is Sean Mitchell on every slate. So don't buy into the tonight things. Let's finish it off at center, Sean, where we have the god Nikola, as John in his Boston accent would say, Nikola Jokic at the top. He is 10-9 on DraftKings, but coming off a 35, 15, 6, 1 block, 3 steal, 70 burger. I think John and I labeled that a fillet one time or another. It's not a burger because once you get 70, like way past a burger, must play, right? I mean,
yeah.
How else do you say it?
I mean, yeah, it's prioritizing the slate for me. It was Luka 1 and Jokic 2. That was even before all of this news even came out. I mean, this slate, it feels like those two have been probably my top 2 plays on at least like 3 slates so far this year. He 68 or more fantasy points, and that was his third that was over 68 out of, basically half of his games have gone for 70 fantasy points. So it's really hard to make an argument as to why you wouldn't play Jokic on this slate. He's actually projected to not be very owned, which I find quite interesting. But yeah, I mean, he's done it. He's got a good matchup here at home against Dallas, who, even if they start Willie Cauley Stein, he's definitely still got the matchup.
2 things. One's a statement. I'm getting word from our producer, John. 50 burger, 60 steak, 70 filet was what we officially came up with. 2 is a question. If you knew going into this slate that Nikola Jokic was going to be 50% owned in tournaments, would you play him?
Yeah. I think that would, to me, that would be considered good chalk. I mean, look, if you're talking about a guy who can literally put up 75 fantasy points, that's good chalk. I mean, to me, the spot's good, the total's fine, the spread's only 3. I mean, if it was like a 18-point spread or even a 12-point spread here in favor of Denver, no, I probably wouldn't go there because I would probably go somewhere else that probably has lower ownership. But the simple fact that he is a man alone, basically, in this tier, I mean, in the spot itself, and knowing that he can get you 70 fantasy points, I don't think you can afford to fade.
Yeah, it just kind of tells you that it's only 3-point spread in Denver, how bad they've been defensively. 27th in defensive rating this year, the Nuggets are. So definitely a different team than it has been in years past. I mean, we've talked about it a lot. If Embiid plays, there has been rumors. Doc Rivers has openly said he doesn't want to extend Embiid. Plays 37 minutes last night. Yes, they needed him. Yes, he went nuclear. Second leg of a back-to-back. We've always been weary about Embiid, but maybe things are changing. It's 2021. We saw Kawhi Leonard play a back-to-back last night. I think Embiid is interesting. I think the guy below him is more interesting, at least for me. But break down Embiid and Drummond and how you assess both those guys.
Well, Drummond has not been good lately. With that said, we do know that he does have the upside. We do know that he can put up 60. But, I got a feeling that the guy that's below him in Joe Val is definitely not going to allow him to go Nuketown on him. That's just, Joe Val is a very, very big human.
And he's a big human.
I know Drummond is too, but whenever you got a guy clogging the middle and gobbling up a lot of rebounds like you do with Joe Val, it's going to be really hard for Drummond to have a ceiling game. So that's kind of what took me more off of him and onto Joe Val, plus the simple fact that, the Cavs are allowing the 3rd most fantasy points to the center spot. So, yeah, Joe Val is one of my favorite GPP plays. He's one of my favorite tournament plays on the slate. But as far as looking at Embiid and Drummond, if Embiid plays, yeah, there's a lot of risk, and that's a big reason why he might come in with 5% ownership or 2% ownership. Just as you said, we just saw Kawhi play it back-to-back. We've seen LeBron play a couple.
Right.
So to say that he won't play, I think is incorrect because I could easily see him playing this game. The kind of more of the reason is like, why should he play now? More of,
Right.
considering Brooklyn has all of their stars out except Karis LeVert. But yeah, I think I still have to go to Embiid over Drummond if he's playing. I mean, I would take Embiid at 30 minutes against Brooklyn, who we know has been terrible against center spot forever. I would take him over a 35-minute Drummond. Yeah, on the slate, I would.
So I don't dispute the production has been down for Drummond, and obviously we just saw the ceiling of Embiid. He went crazy. Right. My worries, two things, is one, obviously Brooklyn staying competitive here. I do worry about that, and if we only get 24 minutes of Embiid, then I don't think we get a return on 9,500. And if we're talking about price, $8,400 just feels criminally low for Andre Drummond, who has gone for 60 this year. There's already no Darius Garland. There might not be Colin Sexton, so all of Sexland might be off the table. It just feels like this could be the Drummond night at 8,400. We'll see. I think Jonas Valanciunas, I think that's a great call. Moving down the value tier or mid tier, I think is interesting because Jared Allen is here, already officially starting again. I think he got a big boost from 4 DeAndre Jordan fouls in 4 minutes. And now the price tag is not forgiving at all on Jared Allen. We saw Nurkic finally have a good game, even though he had a bad fourth quarter. He didn't do anything. He did all of his work in like 2.5 quarters. And then I think your interesting punt of the night is Willie Cauley-Stein, who we saw start. If Willie Cauley-Stein starts again tonight, because I don't know if you peeped the ownership, Maxi Kleber checking in as the highest owned tournament play we currently have. If Cauley-Stein starts, one, how does he not pick up 2 quick fouls against Jokic? But 2, even if he plays 20 minutes, 3,700, would you be interested in Cauley-Stein?
I think you would have to be. I mean, I think you'd have to be. He played 24 minutes, scored 15 actuals, 7 boards, 2 dimes, and he swatted a shot. He had a block and a steal. 32 fantasy points at, looking at 3.74K even on FanDuel. Yeah, I don't see how you couldn't literally take him into consideration if he is starting again and we know he's going to play 25 minutes at that price. He could 10X. Still, I mean, you just mentioned yourself that Denver's, 27th in defense efficiency, so right there tells you right there all you need to know.
I'm with you. Just obviously the 2 fouls in the first 30 seconds on the floor against Nikola Jokic is an issue. Sean, it is 6:30. It is time to leave. Big thanks to John and Pemba for producing. You can catch John over on the Fantasy Alarm Show coming up in about 5 minutes to talk some NBA. Sean, big thanks to you as always, and we'll see